70% of Agile projects fail because of one silent killer teams never see coming. Watch to the end to discover the counterintuitive rule that stops scope creep before it even starts. It was Sprint 3. The backlog had grown by 40 new items. The deadline had not moved by a single day. And Priya, the Agile project manager, was watching her team collapse under the weight of work nobody had approved. Nobody had said yes to a major scope change. But somehow, the project had doubled in size. That is scope creep, and it is the silent killer of Agile teams everywhere. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how to spot it early, stop it cold, and turn it into a tool that makes you a better leader. Scope creep is not one big decision. It is 100 small ones. A stakeholder asks for just one more feature. A developer makes a helpful improvement nobody actually requested. A product owner quietly adds stories to the backlog between sprints, no discussion, no trade-off. According to the Project Management Institute, 52% of projects experience scope creep. And in Agile environments, where flexibility is a feature, scope creep hides in plain sight. Recognizing it early is not just useful, it is the difference between shipping and failing. Here is the real cause most teams never talk about: vague requirements at the very start. When user stories are not specific enough, everyone fills in the gaps with their own assumptions. The developer builds more than needed. The stakeholder expects something completely different. And suddenly, nobody agrees on what done actually means. Ask yourself, how many of your current user stories have truly clear acceptance criteria? Most teams answer 30% at best. The chaos does not begin in Sprint 5. It begins in sprint planning. If you do not define the hard boundaries of the work, someone else will, and you will not like the result. Step 1. Freeze the sprint backlog the moment the sprint begins. New requests during a sprint are not ignored, they are captured in a holding list and reviewed before the next planning session. This one discipline saves teams weeks of wasted effort across a year. Amazon uses a principle called working backwards. You define precisely what you are building before the work begins, and you do not change it mid-flight. Write this down. Share it with every stakeholder. Make it the law of the sprint. When people know the door is locked during a sprint, they stop knocking. Step 2. Negotiate the trade-off. When a stakeholder brings a new request, never say no immediately. That creates conflict. Instead, ask one powerful question: what would you like us to remove to make room for this? This reframes everything. Suddenly, the stakeholder must weigh priorities. They must give something up. 80% of the time, they will pause and say, "Let me think about it." And the urgent request quietly disappears. The 20% that remain are genuinely important. This is the art of Agile negotiation, not rejection, but exchange. New request in, something of equal weight must come out. Step 3. Build a clear definition of done. Every Agile team needs a specific, written checklist everyone agrees to. Code reviewed? Unit tests passing? Acceptance criteria signed off? Documentation updated? Without this, work expands endlessly to fill available time. That is Parkinson's law, and it will destroy your sprint velocity. When the team knows exactly what done looks like, scope stays contained. Ambiguity shrinks. Build this checklist before Sprint 1. Revisit it every retrospective. Post it where the whole team can see it every single day. Step 4. Run a weekly scope check. Once a week, hold a 15-minute review with your product owner and key stakeholders. 3 questions only: what is firmly in scope? What is firmly out? What just became a new risk? This meeting costs 15 minutes. It saves days of misaligned work. Teams that do this consistently catch scope drift long before it becomes a scope crisis. Spotify engineering teams call something similar their alignment pulse: small, frequent, and surgical. You are not solving problems in this meeting. You are preventing them from forming. Step 5. Document every approved change. No exceptions. Record the date it was requested, who approved it, what was removed to accommodate it, and why it was added. This is not bureaucracy. This is your protection. When a project runs over deadline and someone asks why, you will have the full story in writing. More importantly, the active documentation creates friction for casual requests. People think twice before asking when they know everything goes on record. Make change management visible, and you make scope creep expensive. Here is what you do right now, in the next 10 minutes. Open your current project backlog. Look for anything added in the last 2 weeks without a formal approval process. Highlight it. Then write 3 clear sentences defining what is in scope and what is not for your current sprint. Share that with your team before the end of today. You do not need a perfect system to start. You need a visible one. One clear boundary is worth 100 vague conversations. Start today. Not tomorrow. Today. That's a wrap, thanks for watching. If this gave you one idea you can use today, hit like and subscribe. See you in the next one.